tremendous engineers here. I love seeing everybody here. I'm glad we could show up for this tremendous presentation today. Let me introduce you to this wonderful staff that I have working with me as my presidency continues. We're doing great things, by the way. First off, we have our secretary, our House Press Secretary, Annalise. We have Secret Service member #1, Sam. We have the Secretary of War, Jasmine, and Secret Service member #2, Angela. And today we're going to do a presentation, one of the best ones I think I've ever written, about the Ninja Star we created for this beautiful project. I'll have Angelo take away the next slide.
So sand casting, as you know, we make a mold out of sand using whatever pattern you decide, and then you pour molten metal into the mold to replicate the part that we picked. During the project, our strategy was to pick something that was like both really cool but also like really easy to cast. So like something that was like flat and like that had pretty decent draft angles. So naturally we decided on a weapon. Yeah. So
We love weapons.
So our original design for the shuriken, it was supposed to have a hole in the middle because that would make it more accurate and look cooler. But we decided to scrap that because that would make the process like a little bit more complicated. It would like the flat hole in the middle would like probably rip out the part of the mold that it was in. So we decided to just make it simple, make it flat. Also, the geometry really helped with getting the mold out of or getting the pattern out of the mold. And it's like flat, it's pretty like thin and flat, so the cooling was like pretty even everywhere.
So I would like to go ahead and welcome you, fellow Americans, as I describe the next two parts. So two things I want to cover today is the process and also the plan. So first we're going to start with our plan. Our plan was very simple. We were going to have our drag and our cope, we were going to put it inside, we were going to build a wall, a box. And
It was a wall.
Not to mention that. And then as we continued, we were going to put our sprue through that was going to go right through the center. So what did this actual process look like? So for the process, we went ahead and we made our box and we had the different planks. Now we did reduce the size of this. Originally we were going to make it as big as possible, but you know, your tax dollars were at stake. So we decided to shrink the size of the box. Now continuing, we first put in some sand and we put our part in. And then after this, we put some baby powder on it. Wait, that was the next process. We went ahead and we put our resin sand on there and left it to harden. After this, we flipped it over, added baby powder, put more resin sand on it, and allowed that to harden. Now, after this, we had to remove our weapon from the part, and this created some challenges, so we did have to kind of scrape it out. And we also were encouraged to add whisper vents. Now originally, as you saw on the last slide, we had a 3D part that we were going to use for our gating system. But pretty much in the American way, the people in our department were like, nah, don't do that. And so we didn't do that. Instead, we just drilled a hole right through it. And then as we continued, we needed to burn it. And then after we did that, we added glue to attach the two parts together. One thing to mention is that earlier in the process, after making the first layer, we did have to solidify the sides so that there was proper alignment that could happen. And then once everything was in, the part was removed, we did straps to secure it properly.
It's a beautiful mold, as you can see. Our pouring process, we were all present, we were all there. None of us participated in the pouring process. That's not our job. We're all white collar, not blue collar here. So, but we did participate from the sidelines. We watched them actually pour into our mold specifically. We got to enjoy the melting process, watching the molten iron get warmed and then poured. So yeah, that was a really cool experience. And this is our mold right out of this is our piece out right out of the mold. So as you can see, the whisper vents added a lot of extra iron on the sides. So our finish was a bit rough at first, but we got it down to be very nice at the end. So yeah.
So let me tell you, I didn't write this slide. I know the guy who did. His name is Carson. He's our foreign ambassador. And while he's not here today because he's off making tremendous deals in China, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about this tremendous slide he wrote. So as you saw previously, we had big vents. We don't like wasting material, but we had no choice. I was using your tax dollars to make it look great. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim it off with the bandsaw. Thank you, Mr. Andrapani. He provided tremendous American tools. They were better than the best tools I've ever used. So we sawed off those whisper vents. We made sure that there was a nice point. We had to make it look very sharp, make it very sharp. And then after that, we noticed the very rough finish from the sand. You know, it was a cheap material. We wanted to be very cost effective, but we said, we want it to look shiny, just like all the gold I have in my Oval Office. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sand it. And we used a bandsaw here. And what we did was we trimmed over everything. We made it nice and pointy, and then we went over the surface, making sure to follow those beautiful draft angles. They were very nice, very precise. And then after that, and as I didn't mention, it took about Carson, it took 3 or 4 hours to make it look perfect. And then we sharpened it, and he used a, what did he use? He used a bandsaw, I assume. He didn't write it, but it was basically one of the long sanders, and he held up the Ninja Star, making sure it didn't fly into him and hurt him. It could have happened, but it didn't because he's very safe. And then he used a wire brush to make sure all the particles that came from the saw were taken off. And then the final result was a very sharp, deadly American weapon. I gotta say, American. And then what happened? The parting line was perfect. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. 7 degrees, probably 6 or 7. And then we finally prepped it and we tested it, and it was very deadly. As you can see, it made lots of holes. We like to say it was drilling all the way through the cardboard, like I'm getting oil from all over the Americans right now.
So for our engineering analysis and critique, our final product turned out with 0 defects. So we did get a star out of this. For our dimensional accuracy, we did get smooth parting lines. So that is what we were looking for. For problems with the points, the initial concerns regarding how air was going to escape in the mold. We didn't have any vents, so we did have our whisper vents that were advised from the art students. So this allowed air to escape and fill up the mold. Moving forward, if we wanted to do this again, I think we did have an oversized gating system, or plan to use an oversized gating system. So we would cut down on that. For the sand mold, we could have probably even made it a little smaller than we did, so that would reduce, flask size and save on chemical binders and sand. For the theory of how this would work versus the actual practice, the CAD models, when running simulations, they would consider like perfect flow for the molten metal going into the mold, but in actual practice, the metal probably did not flow as easily as simulation would suggest. Key takeaways from this is that your mold does kind of depend on your pouring group, or the success of how your mold might turn out could depend on your pouring group. So if you poured a little slower, then your mold might fill easily. If you poured faster, it might not. Or if you poured faster, it might not fill as evenly. In terms of your surface finish, that could depend on the quality of the mold wash or the burn. And for our final piece, we did get a shuriken design. Conclusion for this whole project, this showed a good balance of design intent, material properties, and process limitations. There's only so far you can get by knowing the stuff from the books and getting hands-on experience with the mold making process all the way from design to the pour. Really kind of completes your knowledge on this subject, and gets you the whole experience from the book and making a real in-world project. A successful cast was achieved through our careful CAD design, and then of course the manual labor of making the mold and going through all of that preparation. In this project, we did learn to design for manufacturing, so success isn't just the shape of the part, it's about your draft angle, your gating system, your risers, the material that you use, the sand that you use. There's a lot of different factors that go into when considering designing a part like this. Proper designs determine whether the product, you get what you're looking for or you just made scrap metal. The process does have a lot of variability in it, so when comparing, your simulations and a CNC process and a 3D printing process, you kind of get what you designed in the computer, but when you are making the mold, there is some human error in there. So you might not pack the sand as densely, maybe the moisture level of the sand is differently, maybe your poured yours a little faster or maybe a little inconsistent. So there is a lot of human error in this process. And that really shows when you're translating that into the industry, you really do need to be strict with how many variables you are controlling. This also showed some topics from other classes, like fluid dynamics. You have fluid flowing into, into a mold, so that kind of demonstrates some stuff that we learned in other classes.
As a final hoorah for all that we've talked about today, I do want to say, Professor Schoening, we thank you very much for your American teachings. I went to school with the professors that taught you, and they said that you were a great student. I'm very old, I know, but we do thank you very much. We've created some fine engineers here. All of you, I hope to see you working for my administration in the real world. I promise you'll be rich. I can promise you that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was funny. I loved it. I've never seen anything like it.
Mr. President,
Let me tell you, they said they've never seen a body like mine. 2% body fat, 200 pounds of pure lean muscle, and let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm sleeping on the job. I'm doing ab crunches while I'm trying to wake myself up from dozing off, which means sleeping inside this presentation. They're so boring, but mine are just truly nice. And then, when I get shot at, I get to run a lot, so it's really nice. Thank you.
How do you not break character?
I've been doing this for a long time. They like to learn when I speak Trump, so we studied lots of things in Trump. We studied your class, machine design. We studied a lot of heat transfer. That flow of heat, we love that. So it's very easy for me to stay like this.
approximately how many cumulative hours do you think you spent on that project?
Far too many. More than my schoolwork, I probably would say.
YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't posted in like 3 weeks or 3 months, but it's Donald the Tremendous Engineer. Please check it out, subscribe, and I promise I'll post more.